Here's a number that stopped me cold. This company just told the market it will spend around $190 billion on data centers this year. And roughly two-thirds of that, the chips, the GPUs, is gear that basically wears out in about 5 years.
5 years. So they're buying the most expensive shovels of the whole gold rush. And the shovels rot.
And they're buying them at the top of the price cycle. Memory costs alone added $25 billion. So the question for today is the one the whole thesis hangs on. Is this the world's smartest company making history's most expensive mistake? Or is it the deepest moat anyone's ever built on sale?
Big swing between those two.
That's the episode. The company, if anyone's been on Mars, Microsoft.
Right, so let's frame it. In one breath, this is one of the great software businesses on Earth. Office, Windows, the enterprise stack, and Azure, the cloud arm. Recurring, high margin, sticky. Nobody's arguing it's a bad business.
Nobody's saying no.
So the question isn't, is it good? It's, is it cheap? Great business, but is the price leaving you any cushion?
And that's the whole game. Because at around $390 a share, our analysis pegs a probability-weighted fair value at roughly 414. So the margin of safety, the cushion between price and a conservative value, is about 6%.
6%. That's not a cushion. That's a rounding error.
It's Finn. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But let me make the bull case first because it's real. Start with the crown jewel, the Office and enterprise software stack. About 45% of operating profit.
The boring one.
The beautiful one. They raised prices this year, confirmed in July, while seats kept growing. That's the tell for genuine pricing power. You push price and customers don't flinch, because leaving is a nightmare. Switching costs. This is C's candy grade.
Okay, I'll give you Office. That's a fortress. What about the part everyone's actually excited about? The AI cloud.
Azure grew 40% last quarter, and demand is running ahead of supply. They physically can't build fast enough.
See, and that's where I get twitchy. 40% growth because you can't meet demand isn't the same as pricing power. That's scarcity. It's rent you collect because there's a shortage, and shortages end.
That's fair, and honestly, the thesis agrees with you. It grades Azure neutral, not a fortress. The raw GPU layer is commoditizing. And here's the thing, the most sophisticated buyers of compute on the planet are now building their own rental capacity.
So the customers are becoming the competition.
On the raw compute, yes, which is exactly why the thesis says the moat isn't the metal. Hold that thought, because it's the answer to the whole puzzle. I'll come back to it.
Open loop noted. Don't leave me hanging.
I won't. But before the answer, let me hand you the knife, because this is the segment where you get to swing. What makes this a mistake?
Happily. This is the Munger inversion. Invert the thesis, ask what would make it a disaster. And I've got 4 things stacked on top of each other.
Go.
1. The cost of computing falls every single year. The price per unit of AI keeps dropping. So Microsoft's future revenue is riding a price that deflates, while its cost base is locked in at this year's peak component prices. You're renting out something whose price keeps falling off a machine you bought at the most expensive moment in the cycle.
That's the sharpest bear point in the whole thesis. I'll concede that immediately.
2. The counterparty, OpenAI. And this it's genuinely strange. OpenAI is Microsoft's biggest customer, about 45% of the contracted backlog. It's also a capped payer. It's now a competitor because its frontier product is going to a rival cloud and it loses money. So your biggest customer is simultaneously your rival and an unprofitable credit. No other giant carries a knot like that.
4 hats on one head. Agreed, it's unusual.
3. Today's margins are a mirage. That gorgeous 46% operating margin, that's before the bulk of this year's chip fleet starts depreciating. The bill hasn't arrived yet.
And 4?
4, and this is new. This is the one that worries me most. The broad demand story. Strip out OpenAI, and the rest of the backlog is still growing, but it's decelerating. It went from 28% to 26% in 1 quarter. 2 points. If that keeps sliding toward 20 and below, then the pillar holding this up, everyone wants this, not just OpenAI, starts to crack. And the concentration gets worse mechanically.
Let me name what's happening under all four of those, because there's a bias lurking. The bull case here is textbook over optimism, underrating the obstacles, assuming the demand curve just keeps going. The thesis flags it. Today's margin is before the depreciation wave, and people are extrapolating the good quarter.
And the little social proof too. It's the largest company in the world. Everybody owns it, so it must be fine.
Right. Everyone owns it, so it's safe is not analysis. So let me actually answer you instead of hand waving, because there's a genuine rebuttal, and it's the thing I told you to hold.
The compute isn't the moat thing.
The recapture annuity. Here's the picture. Think of the data center as a toll road that anyone can build, and yes, the tolls will get competed down. But Microsoft owns the cars, the seats. Every Office user, every Copilot subscription is contracted per person high-margin software that sits on top of the compute.
So even if the compute commoditizes to nothing,
The seat still pays every month. Copilot went from 15 million paid seats to over 20 million, and the additions are up 250% year on year. A neo cloud renting bare GPUs has none of that. That's why Microsoft can carry a premium price when a pure compute landlord trades at half the multiple.
okay, that's a real answer. The toll road commoditizes, the cars don't. I'll actually sit with that.
And there's a unit economics check underneath it that surprised me. There's an independent read on what rented AI compute actually earns. A comparable rig built for around $7 billion is renting for roughly $15 billion a year.
Wait, payback in under 6 months?
Under 6 months at current market rates, which cuts both ways, and the thesis is honest about it. Returns that good pull in supply fast. That's the deflation you were worried about. But it also means even if prices fall meaningfully, the contracted portion still clears an acceptable return.
So the very fact that it's a fantastic business is what guarantees the competition shows up. That's almost poetic.
It's the capital cycle, which is the perfect bridge to the actual question. Is the price right? Because we've agreed it's a wonderful business, that was never in doubt.
And a wonderful business at the wrong price is still a bad outcome. So show me the math. And I want the honest version.
The honest version starts with a gut punch. First principles. Forget the multiple for a second. Just compare the earnings you're buying to what a government bond pays you risk-free.
The earnings yield versus the 10-year treasury.
Right. Take the company's adjusted trailing earnings against the price, and you get a yield of about 4.1%. The 10-year treasury pays about 4.5%.
Hang on. So the safe government bond yields more than the stock's actual earnings?
On trailing numbers, yes. The equity risk premium, the extra you're paid for taking stock risk over the bond, is negative right now.
That's remarkable. You're paying up for the privilege of taking more risk. Every dollar of return in this has to come from growth then. There's no cushion in the current earnings at all.
That's exactly the thesis's point. All of the return is growth dependent. The growth is real, but it's the whole story. Contrast that with, say, the Japan trading houses Buffett bought. Single-digit earnings multiples, 5% yields, near zero bond rates. That was cheap math. This is not cheap math.
So how does the 414 fair value get built? Because if the trailing yield is underwater, that number is entirely a bet on the next 3 years.
It is. It's 3 scenarios, probability weighted. And I want to walk the bear leg specifically because the thesis deliberately made it brutal.
Good. I don't trust a bull who won't steelman the bear.
In the bear case, call it a 1 in 4 chance. Revenue growth slows to about 7%. Azure decelerates as those rental prices deflate into the expensive fleet. And the profit margin gets crushed from the mid-30s down to around 27% under the full weight of depreciation. Profit lands near $108 billion, and the market re-rates it down to 15 times earnings, pricing the heavy capital regime as permanent.
And even in that ugly world, what's the per share value?
About 181 in present value terms.
Huh. So the downside is a serious derating, the stock roughly halving from here. But it's not a wipeout. The business doesn't break. It just gets repriced as something more ordinary.
That's the key insight. The downside here is a derating, not an impairment. The base case, the 50% one, has profit around 170 billion at a blended multiple in the low 20s and lands you north of 440. The bull case gets you towards 600. Weight them together,
And you get the 414, 6% above today's price. Which brings us right back to my rounding error complaint.
and you're right to press it. Here's how this kind of analysis handles a thin cushion. When you've got a live, possibly permanent question, does a software company that now has to buy chips forever earn software-like returns, plus a weird counterparty tail, you demand a bigger margin of safety. This approach wants 20 to 25%, not 6.
So the method basically says, great company, wrong entry. Wait for Mr. Market to have one of his moods.
That's the framing. Mr. Market's the manic depressive business partner, and he did have a mood. The stock fell more than a third from its high, its worst month since the year 2000. But the reasoning here says the drawdown was about half genuine substance, the capital intensity shift is real, and only part panic. So it's not a screaming bargain to grab blindly just because it dropped.
A cheaper price on a genuinely changed business isn't automatically a gift. The business changed.
Which lands us on the one lesson. And it's the oldest one in the book, but this is a $500 billion illustration of it.
Go on.
A wonderful business and a wonderful investment are not the same thing. The price you pay decides your return, even when, especially when, the quality is undeniable. Microsoft is a genuinely great business, and at this price, on these numbers, the analysis says the quality is roughly fairly paid for, with barely any room for error.
And the trap is exactly that the quality is so obvious. It's so clearly excellent that you stop asking what you're paying for it. The moat blinds you to the multiple.
That's the whole thing in one line. The better the business, the easier it is to talk yourself out of the price discipline. The cushion is the discipline.
So we open on smartest company or most expensive mistake. And the answer is...
The answer is probably neither. It's a wonderful business being asked to become a different kind of business at a price that assumes it succeeds. The next real evidence comes at the late July results, when we find out if the capital is actually converting to returns.
A knife edge, honestly graded. My favorite kind.
Which means it's time for the fine print.
This is general information and education only, not personal financial advice. It doesn't consider your situation.
Do your own research or speak to a licensed advisor before acting. We'll see you next time.